Okay, it is finally happened. It is finally, or it's about to finally happen this Thursday, July 25th. MLS PIN, which has been embroiled in an antitrust lawsuit of its own called No Select versus MLS PIN. That case, by the way, has now been stayed pending the outcome of the Bombshell Commission lawsuit out in Kansas City. Come this Thursday, MLS PIN, which has been involved in this parallel lawsuit, has new compensation fields. And wow, there's a lot of questions. And we've seen a number of different approaches across the country about how MLSs and associations are going to handle compensation. We've heard a big push out of California for seller concessions. We've had some MLSs, and by the way, I think, generally speaking, I think this is the better approach, say we're not going to do anything. We're going to just have that all off MLS. We've had some MLSs say that. And then we have MLS PIN say what we're going to cover in this video, which basically they're going to have new fields in the MLS that reflect what the seller would be willing to pay at closing. This does feel like a game of whack-a-mole a little bit, because when you add it all up, it's kind of net the same. It's kind of net the same out, because once again, you have the seller putting out the commission first rather than having the buyer broker have a discussion with the buyer as to what the value of the services of the buyer broker are worth, right? We should first have a discussion between the buyer and the buyer's broker as to the value of those services, rather than just have the seller say, hey, I'm willing to pay X amount. But that's what they're doing here in MLS PIN. Let's bring up the article from Gately Estate, gatelyestate.com, which directly related to me, obviously. There's artwork from MLS PIN, which just came out within the last hour or two. MLS PIN launches new compensation fields on Thursday. If you're a practicing agent or broker here in the MLS system, which is the vast majority of Massachusetts, you might want to pay attention to the sub-ed here. Unclear impact on existing listings and syndication. Stay tuned on this video for details or lack of details on that. So bye-bye to the agency-to-agency compensation fields. Hello, sorry about that. Hello, seller to buyer, broker compensation fields. I don't know if there's a big difference, but that's what we're doing. So the rule change does not indicate how active for sale listings might be impacted by the change. For instance, if a broker takes no action on Thursday when this change rolls out, will the data previously entered under the old system simply be transferred to the new listing fields? My point of view on that is no. How could it be simply transferred? Because the prior listing fields were agency to agency, and now the new fields are from seller to buyer broker. Those are technically two different things. And you can't just transfer the data, because you can't assume that the new listing is going to handle it the same way. Or if there's paperwork to back up that, right? There might not be paperwork to back up that. And additionally, will each listing need to be manually updated? And what will be the default? What will be the default if you don't do anything, or you're a brain dead broker and you don't even know this is happening? What are your listings going to look like on Thursday if you don't make any changes, right? My guess would be that they're going to all be pre-populated as unspecified, which I'm not a big fan of, but I would prefer that there was an option to leave all of these fields absolutely blank. But there isn't. they kind of, if you don't want to enter these fields, then the default is, to the best of my knowledge, unspecified, which I think is kind of stigmatizing. And there should be an option just to leave these blank. There are other things in the MLS when you enter a listing in that you're not required to answer at all. You're not required to answer at all. And these fields should fall into that category, in my opinion. So if you don't do anything, what is it going to say? And do you have to manually go and update these listings, which it's a small agency here at my office, is going to take us like 3 seconds. But if you're some mammoth agency and you have to update all of this, is a major administrative task, especially since it's only been less than a week since they announced that this change was going to happen. And now we have the date, which is Thursday. So a lot of work on the back end. As we talked about at the beginning of the show, several other MLSs have decided to do this differently, including California. Even though the Department of Justice has made some comments that indicate that offers of compensation should not be anywhere, but certainly not on the MLS. So there's still some question of whether or not this should be done at all, right? And that's kind of like my viewpoint. If it was me, I would just simply get rid of all of this altogether. And if you want to have the if you want to have the seller pay the buyer broker, then fine, just write it into the offer. But why have the MLS involved in this topic at all? It's troublesome from a legal point of view. Just get out of that business and focus on your core business, which is syndicating information. That's just kind of my point of view. Additionally, and here, I think here's a big warning for some of you. A lot of you out there are probably just going to go into the MLS, and whatever you had written in there before, you're going to write it into the new fields. Remember, I'm not a lawyer, and consequently, I'm not your lawyer. Too smart to go law. But I would tread lightly. I don't think I would just simply write whatever you had written before. But I know a lot of people are going to do that. That's the absolute lazy way to do it. But you don't have paperwork to back that up, most likely. Most likely, you don't have paperwork to back that up. So if you have an existing listing, that listing agreement, I haven't read yours, but my gut feeling is that listing agreement describes agency to agency compensation. And my gut feeling is you don't have a listing agreement that describes seller to buyer broker compensation. Do you? No, you don't. No. So I would first go back and amend my existing listing agreement and then change the data in the MLS PIN, because otherwise you could be in a heap of trouble with your client and elsewhere. Lastly, will these new compensation fields be syndicated to the partner sites like, Zillow, Realtor.com, all over the world, how the MLSs do it? Because as you know, when you go into Zillow or whatever, somewhere near the bottom, you can find out what the commission is, which you used to didn't be able to find it. Now you can. Will this new information be syndicated there? I don't know. So a couple of questions here in the general topics are: one, what happens to existing listings? And two, what happens with syndication? We have no details on that from the MLS PIN. I have left a message with them saying, hey, we need some more details on this. And I know they watch this channel. Hey, how you doing, MLS PIN? Thanks for watching. I know you watch. I know it. I know you're watching. And right now, you're right in the offices of MLS PIN. They're probably watching right now. And they're like, oh, God, Jack, we better come up with some. Yeah, please. Like, how is that going to be handled? This is Thursday, folks. When I understand when you did the conceptual announcement last Tuesday that you didn't release all the details. That was fine. But now we're announcing the date, and you don't have all the details? Okay. Point made. All right. So when you go over to the announcement that came today, seller's choice, beginning July 25th, brokers can specify in Penergy how their seller clients wish to handle compensation. Compensation fields will be optional and not required in Penergy. I want to get a larger version of this so you can actually see what it's going to look like here. Let me click a couple of buttons. Here you go here. So this is what it's going to look like come Thursday. And based upon the artwork that they are providing, let me just get a quick sip of water here. By the way, thank you so much for joining us today. Based upon the artwork that they're providing, it appears as if the default answers are unspecified. I would prefer that the default answers were just blank altogether. Just me. So compensation is not required in Penergy. These fields may be left blank, but it doesn't look like it can be left blank. It looks like they have to have unspecified. Your compensation, and again, this is from seller to buyer broker, can be based on gross sale price, which I don't think most people do that. Most people go net sales price. You can click not offered, or you can click compensation offered but not in MLS, or you can pick unspecified. Based upon like just a gut feeling, I think we're going to have a period of transition. But I think at some point, week, 2, 3 weeks, I don't know how long it's going to take for everybody to catch up here. I think most people will end up filling this in a very similar fashion that they filled in the prior fields. In other words, most people are going to probably pick net sales price, buyer broker's compensation offered, yes, and then a percentage, 2, 3%, 2, 2.5%, whatever it is. I think this is not going to really change things from a net point of view. And even though MLS PIN had a super compelling First Amendment free trade brief to the court on this topic, I'm not sure they're going to get away with this in terms of an antitrust thing. But, again, not a lawyer, so, what do I know? But I think we're going to have a change here that ends up to be a distinction without a difference, as the phrase says. Because I think most people are going to pick, now maybe that's okay with the market. Maybe that's what the market says. Most people are going to pick net sales price, yes, 2, 2.5%, 3% or whatever, right? Again, this is not agency to agency compensation. This is seller to buyer broker compensation, which actually makes it kind of weird because let's note option number 3, which is compensation offered but not on the MLS. Let's remember that agency to agency compensation is allowable under the NAR settlement in the Stitzer court case. And by including it here as option number 3, compensation offered but not in MLS, it seems to imply that you might offer agency to agency compensation but not on the MLS. It's like they almost started to conflate seller to buyer broker with agency to agency by including option number 3. By including that language at all, compensation offered but not in MLS, that is reflective of the NAR settlement. That's reflective of the NAR settlement. Why would you include it here if you're talking about seller to buyer broker compensation? I don't know, right? Why would you do that? They also continue to announce that there will be additional changes made in Q4 of this year. So there's a lot of questions that still are outstanding here. The syndication, how your existing listings are going to be treated. You have to manually update. There's a lot of questions. Do we have any comments? We do not have comments at the moment. Okay. Well, I'm proud to give you this update, and I hope that we can do a deep dive on the Massachusetts Realtor Association or Association of Realtors, whatever it's called, listing agreement when we get around to it. But I wanted to bring you this breaking news today. I'm Jack from Jack Gately Real Estate in the Online Real Estate Academy. Go make some money. Bye-bye.